All right, good evening, everyone, and welcome to another live edition of the Going Solo Veterans Corner. I am your host, retired Army First Sergeant Paul Holbert, coming to you live from Northern Virginia. And of course, for those of you that have followed the show, you know that our aim is to showcase veterans and their experiences and their lives, and the companies and organizations that support veterans and veterans programs. So we're going to talk and we're going to meet tonight's guests here in just a moment. But first, I want to take a minute to thank both of our great sponsors of our show, Quest Jewelers from Merrifield, Virginia. Folks, if you have not taken the opportunity to visit questjewelers.com, you really need to do it because Pete and Wantain have some excellent jewelry pieces. And if you're looking for that special custom-made something for Mother's Day, they can do it. So take a look at questjewelers.com. And if you do decide to order, send them a message and tell them that we sent you from the show. I also want to thank Nationwide IT Services. NIS is a service-disabled, veteran-owned 8A small business here in Fairfax, Virginia. CK Park is also a retired Army warrant officer. He and his crew are prepared to provide your organization with all the professional services you may need, including IT, training, professional management, program development, and whatever you need for your business. So if you visit NIS at their website, talk to CK Park and his crew. They're a great group of folks, and they'll be sure to help your business. So let's get to tonight's guest, and we have kind of an interesting show tonight. In fact, we have two guests with us. Both of them work for Darkwolf Solutions. And our first guest is Evan Silvio. And of course, Evan is a return guest. We had her on over a year ago, and she came on to discuss some of the transition programs that she works with Darkwolf Solutions for transitioning veterans. Now, Evan has about 10 years of experience doing this type of work, and she is great at assisting transition military personnel, trying to translate their years of military services into skills that they can use in a civilian career. So we're glad to have her back tonight. We also have with us Tyler Fordham. Tyler is a senior principal with Darkwolf Solutions, and he's coming from a background of cyberspace intelligence and offensive operations, both stateside and overseas areas. He's also a veteran of the Texas Air National Guard, where he worked as a network intelligence analyst for defensive and offensive cyberspace operations. So now he's using his talents and his knowledge to actually coordinate his company Skill Bridge program, which we're going to talk about later this evening, to provide internship and hiring opportunities for veterans with cyber backgrounds. So I think it's going to be something really good for you to hear. And first of all, Evan, let me say thank you for joining us. And Tyler, you from Seattle all the way on the West Coast, we really appreciate both of you being here.
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so before we really get into the meat of some of the programs in your work, I wanted to ask each of you, and Evan, I'm a little more familiar with your background, and I think, I wanted to ask you first, Evan, how did you really get into the field of helping and working with veterans? What kind of drove you into that?
Yes. So my grandfather, he went to West Point, was in the Army, obviously. So him and my uncles all were in the military. And it's just something that, and my cousins as well, they were also in the military and went to West Point. So have the family background that goes with it. And obviously people that are willing to put their lives on, the line for our country. I want to do anything I can to help them out. So it's just something I've been passionate about since before I can remember. Yep.
Yeah, well, I can understand that. Having remembered that you had military members in your family, mm-hmm. I'm still gonna come after you so we can get a couple of them on the show too.
Yep,
get some of those veterans from your family on the show later on.
Yeah,
so I'll talk to you about that later on sometime.
Okay.
So Tyler, what about you? What prompted you to really get into veteran-centric programs?
Well, so, I'll give you the less standard answer than most, right? My father was a commander in the Coast Guard, but I was never the type who was going to join the military. But that's how it works out sometimes, right? And it was only after being in the service, right, that, I grew to have the appreciation for it, as so often happens, with folks. And after getting out, as a staff sergeant, having great experiences, getting lots of benefits, from the service, it was just a really clear thing to me that in every part of my career to follow that, being able to act in an advocate position for folks who, maybe don't recognize quite as many of the benefits that they get afforded from service, has been something that I've focused on a lot, right? Seeing people go through the time that they have to serve and not get everything that they can out of it, is something that I like to try and, help folks along with. So.
Okay. Yeah. So, I can understand, to be honest with you, that's one of the primary reasons why I do this show, is to try to give something back and give fellow veterans an opportunity to share their experiences and things like that. So, yeah, I can understand. Now, each of you have a little different type of work that you do. And Evan, if you would take a minute just to share with the audience some of the work that you've been doing. I know you've done some resume assistance and transition work. So what are a couple of things that you've been working on?
Yep. So I help transitioning veterans and military personnel translate their resumes or their service and the things they've done in the military to civilian, something that the civilians on the side would understand, because there's a lot of skills that are gained and, achieved within the military, but they're just not translated over as easily as some people would think. And I'm, as a recruiter, I'm the first line of, the first eyes on someone's resume before it comes into the company. So I'm able to figure out what kind of keywords would, help to, get more visibility and kind of help get their resume through the door for, somebody that might not have my experience, somebody that doesn't understand military terms. So I help veterans and transitioning military translate their resumes so they can, get more visibility for jobs at different companies.
Yeah, and I know that's important, because I remember as I was retiring, I had some younger soldiers where I worked in the brigade operations where I worked. And, of course, they found out I had a graduate degree in HR. And some of them who were leaving the service would come to me and say, "Sir, can you help me with my resume? I don't know how," they had no clue how to do a resume. They were using military acronyms. And you both are well versed in the fact that, a lot of civilian organizations have no clue what some of those mean. So, yeah, that's important work.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Tyler, I know you've done a bit more at Darkwolf than just your new program. How did you get started there? What have you been working on?
So, my role at Darkwolf is effectively leading our team of ethical hackers, as it was, alongside a lot of other kind of business development initiatives. But, kind of in the very early phases, as part of me growing a team, I've sort of automatically been empowered to be in a role where I can hire a lot of veterans with relevant experience, right?
Yeah.
Particularly coming from the cyber background I'm in, in the same way that Evan put it, sometimes it takes a veteran who can kind of translate those things, quite frankly, doing the review, doing the interviewing, to really be able to understand, like, oh yeah, I know exactly what this guy's done based on these acronyms, right? When somebody tells me that they've been on the cyber protection team, that means a whole lot more to me than it probably would to your standard civilian, in that same kind of role. So, my team of nearly 25 is about half veteran, at this point. It's worked out that way because a lot of the skill sets have been incredibly relevant to our field. That and, based on that, we got exposed actually through one of our other recruiting colleagues to the SkillBridge program. And, I suppose you'll prompt me more specifically about this afterwards. But, I kind of just took that on, wrote up a few of the initial packages that we had to bring SkillBridge folks on, and happy to say that we have hired several folks from that program with Evan will tell you, very healthy pipeline of extra applicants, kind of interested in Darkwolf through it. So,
yep.
Yeah, I mean, so let's, I think that seems to be your bellwether baby right now is the SkillBridge program. So, Tyler, if you want to take a few minutes and kind of share that with us and tell us how it works. And then, Evan, I'm going to come to you after that and ask you how you think that translates into veterans and helps them. So why don't you go ahead, Tyler? Go ahead and tell us.
Absolutely. Viewers and listeners, let me spin you a yarn. So I'm a veteran and I'm a service member, and I'm about 6 months out from my ETS. At that point, I'm getting plenty of briefings and options about what to do with my career. Many of you are probably familiar with things like the Transition Assistance Program or TAP. But one of those options that's opened up in the last few years is a program called SkillBridge. And effectively what SkillBridge offers troops is the opportunity to go to a company, contractor, commercial, what have you, that is interested in hiring veterans. And at the 6-month mark of their service, if they can find an approved SkillBridge provider and get, sign off from their leadership, commander, et cetera, what they are able to then do is at a certain point that's close to their, separation, go work an internship that is effectively still paid on active duty dollars. However, they are an intern resource to the company that took them on, in a capacity where it's effectively free to the firm, but they're able to start picking up civilian skill sets, get experience, in things that they're not necessarily touching as a troop. And, it offers pathways for them to be able to transition into the civilian workforce a little more seamlessly if they don't get a job directly with the firm that they interned with. So on the flip side of that, as a business, if you literally Google SkillBridge, I think it's skillbridge.osd.mil, it's quite easy to sign up as a SkillBridge provider. And, all you have to do effectively is talk about your business, the opportunities that you can possibly provide troops. And, with a, quite frankly, pretty easy sign-up process, you can get on the list of approved SkillBridge providers. So let's say that somebody comes out of the service, they've spent 5.5 years, and they're a skilled network IT administrator. They can look at the list of SkillBridge providers who are interested in taking on and giving experience to people with that skill set. They can find a company where, they go get a little bit more of the civilian flavor doing all of that. And, effectively they check back in with their unit from time to time, but they become basically an employee, for the company during that time. So we've seen that work out from the Darkwolf perspective, very well, right? Because it's low risk to the companies who are bringing these employees on, but high potential reward because you're getting folks who you can vet, who have prior experience in that field, and who, quite frankly, give you a chance to, feel out and find a great employee out of it. And that's not even talking about the fact, right, that obviously you're doing a great service to, folks getting out of the military and giving them opportunities where even if they don't end up with your firm, right, no harm, no foul. You've helped a troop transition out, get a good feel for the civilian workforce, and, likely have far better success and, finding a job as soon as they separate than they would have otherwise.
Yeah, that sounds like such a good program because, I remember when I was making the transition from my military career, retiring from the Army, all those years ago. Yeah, I actually retired from the Army back in 2001. And, I was living in Europe, stationed in Europe at the time. So you can imagine transitioning, trying to make a move back to the United States, look for work and do all that type of stuff. And I mean, I remember that was the biggest concern, of course, was leaving the service and having to have continued employment and having a career. So it sounds like this would be a great program to help those transitioning veterans. Now, So can any company that's capable of doing this sign up for the program?
Now,
Well, you
there,
have to be approved, an approved employer.
Yeah.
So yeah, Tyler knows. Well, we all kind of were involved in the whole applying process. And it's not lengthy, but there is a lot of thought that needs to go into the application for the Skill Bridge program. And then there's some time, it doesn't take long at all. They get back to you within a couple days after they've reviewed your package and approve you.
yeah, the core thing that they're looking for there, is can your firm provide value to the troops? Are there clear lineups of MOSs or AFSCs with the positions that you're willing to provide, and that's the core thing. Quite frankly, if you have a good structure, if you're clearly willing to support these folks, if you want to put the time in and it makes sense, those are all the things you need to get genuine consideration to get signed up. So,
yeah. I mean it's just so amazing, and I'm not surprised because I mean we've come so far in so many things. But to be honest with you, I wish I would have had something like this available back when I retired. It would have made things so much easier, to make that move. Because, like you said, soldiers and airmen and seamen in the Coast Guard, they're leaving the service. A lot of them younger, not retiring. They're doing their enlistments or their time, and they're transitioning on. And I know it's an unsettling time for a lot of them because they're not sure what it is that, where they're going to end up and what they're going to do, especially the ones with families. So I think this is such an important program. So Evan, what do you see coming out of this for the veterans? What else do you see coming?
I think it's a great opportunity for them to realize what life is like outside of their military, career, and kind of how it's a good way to get used to the transition part. As far as, if you're doing the Skill Bridge internship, you get to, see what it's like in a corporate setting. Mm-hmm. And also during that time, you're like, oh, okay, it's not as, scary as some people may think. And, these are the things I can contribute as, a transitioning military person. And I can say, like, the people that at Darkwolf that we've had go through this program have, there was no difference in between them being a Skill Bridge person to a Darkwolf. Like, they've always been Darkwolf to us because they just got in and hit the ground running, basically, from my point of view. They did, everyone, needs a little bit of run up time when you start onto a company. But I think for the program, it, makes people realize that it's not that scary once you get back out of, the military service. And there is a lot of, great different companies and tools you can learn out there.
Well, I know, like I said, it's it can be such a tumultuous time for these people that are transitioning and an unsure time, especially, like I said, with those young folks who serve the country coming out with families. They've got a lot of responsibilities. So it really sounds like an excellent program for them. So we're going to take a short break here for just a moment and have a word from our sponsors. And when we come back, I want to talk just a little bit more about Skill Bridge as we continue our discussion. So for those of you in the audience, we'll be right back. All right, welcome back, everyone. And you've been listening to the WGSN-DB Going Solo Veterans Corner. And we've been talking with Evan Silvio and Tyler Fordham from Darkwolf Solutions. And they've been telling us about one of the new big programs, Skill Bridge, that they're excited about. And before we kind of finish up on Skill Bridge, I just wanted to ask you if there was one thing in particular from this particular program for each of you, what is one thing that really sticks out to you about it?
To see the amount of interest there is in transitioning military, that there's hundreds of people interested in this Skill Bridge program, that I think it would be awesome if more companies could be involved, because, you know, companies can only take on so many interns for it, but it's really impressive to see the amount of interest that the transitioning military people are taking in the program, in addition to doing their daily, you know, military duties as well. So I think it's the interest for me.
Yeah, and I mean, I'll line up with what Evan's saying here. Quite frankly, if you have any kind of decently sized business and your work involves anything that's relevant to what a troop might be doing, there's no reason you shouldn't sign up. Just from a practical perspective, you'll get a lot out of it. The other thing I'll say, you know, just kind of in general, to touch a little bit more on what Evan said earlier, one of the things that I've seen in particular from SkillBridge troops that I know I experienced, you know, when I first got out and arrived at my first civilian company, I mean, there are things from the military that it takes a little bit of time to shake off. You get into the civilian world day one, and you're still a little afraid of chain of command. You know, being able to own and take things. You know, if you come out of the service as a private or an airman or, you know, a young sergeant or something, I mean, you still don't really feel empowered to do those things. In a way, you know, many commercial, civilian, particularly small companies, you totally have the ability to. So I've seen SkillBridge be a great opportunity for folks to get comfortable with that kind of world and understand that big business is their oyster. You know, so much of the civilian world operates in a rankless and structureless manner that, you know, that's been very helpful for the folks I've seen go through.
Yeah, I mean, I can identify with that, Tyler, because I remember some of those transition blues that I had, even retiring as a first sergeant. When you get into a civilian organization, you know, things are so different. So yeah, I remember quite a bit of that. So, you know, I know that you guys provide a variety of services, especially with this new program you're working with in SkillBridge. But you know, what are some of the other pieces of advice that you try to share as a transition specialist or a transition person working with veterans, such as, you know, the GI Bill, the CLEP, college, and things like that? Are you guys involved in trying to help them get information or share those types of things?
Yeah, so I love ranting about this stuff all day, because I'll give a little bit of background here, and this might turn into me talking for a while. But, you know, my path towards getting my degrees in, you know, getting things out of the service was fairly non-standard in general, right? You know, I used many of the resources that you talked about there, and I quite frankly, I'm gonna touch on each of those individually. If you are in the service, if you are looking at careers, if you still have to work on your degree, take each of these things a lot to heart, right? You should be abusing CLEP testing. And I use the word abuse in kind of a funny way, but I got 51 credits out of free CLEP testing while in the service. You know, many topics that you can basically just transfer directly into a college degree. You take a lunch during your workday, and you go test out of 4 credits for speech, algebra, psychology, you know, many things like that. There are great study resources out there for all of them. Quite frankly, without ever entering a class, you can get halfway through a bachelor's degree before you know, ever take a darn thing. And that's just a free in-service benefit. So, you know, that's something that's really important. You don't even have to use GI Bill or tuition assistance credit there. GI Bill, not enough people use that benefit. It is truly gruesome to see people not go through with it, because from my perspective, you know, I've been able to pick up both a bachelor's and a master's degree, making a profit during it. And that's, unless you are going to an incredibly prestigious degree, and Evan and I will probably talk to you a lot about how much your exact college means. Oftentimes this industry, everything gets paid for. And, particularly if you're in a technical industry, if you're able to work online classes, through universities like, Phoenix or Western Governors University, they don't have the stigma that they used to, period. If I see an employee, who comes from one of those backgrounds, what matters a lot more to me, other than them having gotten the certificate, are certifications, work experience, and what they can tell me and what they can do in kind of our hiring challenges. I was able to get a master's degree in an incredibly expedited timeline through Western Governors University. I will throw that name out there for anybody listening. Programs that are specifically meant and catered towards people who have been doing work in their field, like veterans so often do. You can expedite and test out of classes. So, so often I'll see people coming out of the service who have many credits left, and they think, well, I'll take time off, I'll go back to school, and then I'll enter the workforce. But that gap doesn't need to exist. Yeah. There are programs out there that let you speed that up, and call or email me directly, and I'll tell you more about them, because they're invaluable and they're a great way to put that GI Bill to use. And quite frankly, even outside of those programs, we talked about certifications. Evan and I will both say the same thing, in that certs go an incredibly long way in any kind of technical field alongside a degree. GI Bill can go towards those. The GI Bill can go towards pilot's licenses. The GI Bill can go towards bush mountain snowshoeing adventures if you find the right program. It has limitless applications, and if you're not finding good ways to use it, you're not being creative enough, pal. I'm telling you, you have every ingredient with the GI Bill coming out of the service that you need to be eligible and applicable and competitive in the civilian workforce. And, that's something that I've advised dozens of veterans on personally. Please use this. Here's the exact path. Here's what I would have needed if I was hiring you in that situation. Yeah. And suddenly it's all illuminated, because the problem is troops don't get this information until they're about to out processed usually. Yeah. And it's a damn shame. We're often in situations where we're having to tell people, here's how you could catch up. We have this specific requirement to be able to hire people, but here is the exact 4-month path that you would need to use your benefits to get there. Here's what we would need to hire you during your skill bridge program. There's tons of flexibility in the process, and I could rant all day about the GI Bill and things like that. But
well, no, it's just the reason why I think that's interesting is because you're right. I didn't have that push back in the 90s when I was, a senior NCO, and I finally had an opportunity. I was a chief instructor at Fort Benning for about 3.5 years, and I was able to go under tuition assistance while I was in the Army and finish my undergraduate degree. And then I was able to use tuition assistance to finish my master's degree. So even though I didn't have, I did. I had to go research that stuff for myself, because there wasn't anyone out there to kind of push the programs like you guys are trying to do now. So Evan, I've heard Tyler talk about, degrees, and I believe you went to Radford University? Yeah.
Yes,
so I know you're a proud graduate of Radford University. Mm-hmm. But what is your take on these college programs, the importance? Do you share that with some of the people you work with?
Yes, no, I definitely think it's something that people should take advantage of. And Tyler and I were just brainstorming earlier this week about, with a couple other of our colleagues, about things we can do to help, transitioning military and veterans. And I think this is one way to, kind of figure out how to widespread it, because not that many people know about it. And, if they take advantage of it and they get, use it to get the education and skills that they need to go to the civilian workforce, and then they go in the skill bridge program, they're gaining, more experience than somebody graduating college, after a 4-year degree. Like, that's, they're already ahead of everyone else. And then in addition to the educations and trainings, if they take advantage of it, somebody in the military is going to be, more in, able to be more of a team player, get to work early, stay till the, mission or work is done.
Mhm.
And, they're more reliable in my opinion. And it's just, I think the type of programs that there are and what they can do for transitioning into civilian life is amazing. And I think as far as Tyler and I go in Darkwolf, we want to just make that known so then more people are prepared to get into the workforce. And it'll make it more competitive for everybody else too, which is always fun.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it makes sense because, when you see these people coming out of the military, you're right. There's so many experiences they have that they don't realize transitions over into civilian work.
Mhm.
And, not being familiar with that or being aware. And I will tell you, as far as the practical experience versus the classroom education, while the classroom education is good, having been an adjunct professor for the last 20 years, my students more often than not put on my course evaluations or my professor evaluations that having a professor with direct experience in the field that they're teaching is so much more valuable than having someone teaching out of theory in a textbook. So that practical experience, while you may not think is worth a whole lot, it actually is once you get out and start working. So, that's a good point. So, Evan, what do you see next for you and Tyler at Darkwolf? What do you guys see coming up next?
We see obviously we see growth, and we would like to grow obviously within Darkwolf's expertise, but we would like to bring in more transition veterans than we already have. We were discussing it this week too about how we can get more types of military veterans in Darkwolf. We have a large amount. I think it was 60 or 70, Tyler, for our company, and we are about 200 employees. So I think as far as growth goes and just having those more specialized skill sets, and then also more skill bridge candidates transitioning into full-time employees as well.
So I have to ask you too. I mean, you've provided us a lot of good information, a lot of good information about how SkillBridge works and who it's serving and what you're trying to do. But I want to ask you something on the lighter side here. So when you're not out helping veterans and working and doing things like that, what are some of the things, Tyler, what are some of the things you like to do for Tyler when you're not on the job?
I'm a total unabashed dork and geek. I'll go to game tournaments. I'm going to Seattle's Soccer-a-con anime convention this weekend. And you'll find this with all the people who work in this IT industry. Either they're really extreme into video games or guns, or they all have the weird hobbies, right? And that's one of the funniest things. You see a big generation right now of people coming out of the service, particularly in some of these more technical fields, who are painted red geeks just like I am. And the problem is those same folks are starting to take on leadership positions in companies and things like that. So God help us all.
Well, you know what? It's funny because one of our oldest boys, he works for DOD, and he's actually a hacker and anti-hacker specialist. So he's big into the IT field, always has been. And guess what? Yeah, he's a game geek and he's into all that stuff. So I can identify. Evan, what about you? What does Evan like to do when you're not working? Well, you still riding your bike, or?
Yes, I am. I'm still riding my motorcycle. I tuned it up this week because it's getting really warm out over here in Virginia. And I don't know if you heard my dog earlier snoring, but I hang out with him a lot too. So I do motorcycles. I do some games. Some of the people at work have gotten me into some games. No one wants to play the games I play, but I've gotten into some of the ones that they do. But yeah, just in crafts, stuff like that, and hang out with my awesome neighbors as well.
Well, I mean, it's good the things that you guys are doing with your company, and the assistance you're trying to give the veterans. But as you both know, you need to take the time for yourself and enjoy things for yourself. So I want to ask each of you one last question before we finish the show. And Tyler, I'll start with you. If there was one last message you would like to share with the veterans and the audience, what would it be?
Please use your benefits. I'm begging you. There is so much that you can get out of your service, outside of all of the clear benefits, right? The patriotism and things like that. Quite frankly, if you're putting yourself in the line, even if you're somebody who's likely to never be in the line of duty, you have earned healthcare. You have earned tuition assistance, GI Bill, and everything like that. And I mean, you got to use them. It sets you up so well. And, coming from a situation where, I didn't do well in school, right? I got into the military and, I didn't have a lot of great options left, college and things like that. And despite that, I was able to use those benefits to, put myself into a position where, I've gone the other direction since then. And everybody has the potential to do that. And it's out there.
That's
correctly
if they take advantage of it, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So Evan, what about you? If there's a final message you could share with the audience, what would you share?
As far as transitioning and applying, I would say don't give up. And because I know it could be frustrating if you're not getting any hits, but also don't be afraid to ask. If there's something different you could do for your resume, don't be afraid to ask the, person that you may have come in contact with on, for whatever company. There'll be someone out there that'll take the time to, help tailor your resume or give you advice, just like Tyler and I do. And, we're always here to help. We'll pick up any call and answer any questions you have, as it, pertains to transitioning into the job force and, what kind of path you could take to get to where you want to go within your career after the military.
Well, I mean, I have to tell you, this is some really good information, and it sounds like a really great program. So the veterans out there, anyone listening, especially you younger veterans that think you may need the help, make sure you look into this. The website, darkwolfsolutions.com, is on the screen. There's some contact information up there for Tyler and Evan as well. And I'm sure there is more on the website. So make sure you take a look at that. And Tyler and Evan, I want to thank you so much for coming on and spending some time with us like this and sharing more about your company and what they're doing. And I want to thank you both for all the help that you're giving the veterans. So for the audience out there tonight, as you know, we will normally share information that's vital to veterans and separating service members. And so if you want to take a look tonight at our information, I want you to go to the ihelpveterans.org pledge at the Disabled American Veterans. Take a look there and take a pledge. Take a pledge to do something for a veteran, whether it's someone you know or someone you don't know. But you can go up there and sign up and take a pledge with the Disabled American Veterans. So I encourage you to look at the website there, ihelpveterans.org/pledge at the Disabled American Veterans, and see what you can do to help some of our veterans who may be in need with assistance. For the rest of you, I want to thank you for spending time with us tonight. You watched the WGSN-DB Going Solo Veterans Corner, and we want to thank you for taking the time to spend with us this evening. For those of you veterans out there and their families, as always, we want to thank you for your service and wish you continued health and continued luck in whatever you're doing. So until next show, I will say good night and thank you for joining us.